If you talk more specifically about who you are, tell it in a story format, it really moves the needle in a very, very significant way.
Hey, it's Brad here. And before we get into the show, I want to tell you about the show sponsor. Now, I personally use this company in my own business. And so I was thrilled whenever they reached out and said they wanted to sponsor the show. Today's sponsor is JobTread. JobTread is an all-in-one construction management software. JobTread streamlines processes for builders and contractors from estimating and scheduling to job costing and invoicing. With JobTread, you can create precise estimates quickly, improving the chance of winning jobs. And their dynamic scheduling allows you to keep projects on track with Gantt charts and scheduling tools. JobTread also allows you to collaborate with teams, vendors, and clients in one location. No more missed information. Who said, she said. It's all in one location. And their API integration tools connect with your favorite software like QuickBooks Online, Hammer CRM, or any other API-friendly apps. JobTread is perfect for builders and contractors of all sizes. Whether you're a solo contractor or run a large team, JobTread scales to fit your needs and works great for remodelers, home builders, deck builders, pool builders, and general contractors. Try JobTread today and learn how it can help streamline, manage, and grow your construction business. Visit jobtread.com or click the link in the show notes for more details. Now let's get to the show. Hey, welcome back to today's show. I have another special guest with me today. I have Rich Harshaw with Level 10 Contracting, or Contractor rather. Rich, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Brad. Good to be here.
Awesome. So we were talking a little bit before offhand here about some of the things that you do. Why don't you share with the listeners what it is that your company does, and kind of just a little bit 30,000 foot view, like how you got to starting this company and being a part of this.
Yeah, I just hit my 30-year mark in November, so been doing this a long time. We have an agency that caters our services to contractors, remodeling contractors and home services contractors. We build websites, we do search engine optimization, digital advertising, also do a lot of traditional advertising, radio and TV. Like I said, I've been doing this for 30 years, been specialized in this industry for about 20 years now.
Okay. And before you started your agency, did you work in construction at all? Like, how did you get into construction as your
No, I'm a marketing guy through and through. I've been doing marketing since before college. Studied it in college. Just started my own business right out of college. But I got introduced into the remodeling world. I had a few clients here and there the first 10 years of my business, but in 2005, I was asked by a guy to do. Back in those days, I didn't have webinars. I had what's called teleseminar. He said, "Hey, can you come on and do this teleseminar for a bunch of contractors?" I said, "Yeah, what the heck?" I just released a book at the time called Monopolize Your Marketplace. And after, there's about 300-400 people on that teleseminar. And afterwards I said, "Hey, who's the marketing guru in the remodeling contractor space?" Because they were mostly remodelers. And he said, "Well, there isn't one. That's why I had to go outside of the industry and ask you to come on this thing." And so got involved then, started doing a bunch of seminars, went all over the country doing seminars. Back in those days, probably 50 or 60 in a couple of years, and then just got entrenched in this industry. It's all we do now. Worked with some of the biggest HVAC companies in the country. You may have heard of Horizon Services and their private equity group. Currently work with Champions Group, Service Champions, Bell Brothers, some very large companies in the space. Also a lot of huge and smaller interior and exterior remodeling companies. That's what I do.
Awesome. Yeah. So you definitely have many decades of experience in this industry. So lots of experience here. You said something I want to jump to real quick, which is the radio and like TV advertising. Just like in my mind, that's for the most part dead. I know there's still opportunity there, but can you just speak real quick about like what kind of opportunities exist in those mediums?
Yeah, well, I would say that television is definitely shifting. We're getting a lot more into streaming, but to say it's dead is going to be true. It's not quite
Right.
true yet. It is a good way still to reach older customers, which a lot of my clients are trying to still reach the older 50, 55, 60, 70-year-old folks. So we can reach a lot of those people on traditional linear television, but I would say probably a third of our TV business in the last year has switched to streaming television, which obviously is very vibrant. It's new. Used to be really expensive. The costs have come down quite a bit over the last couple years as the inventory has gone up. So that's been a pretty good advancement. In radio, radio is a lot less dead than you think. It's surprising. It's been pretty resilient. Personally, I don't listen to the radio. I listen to podcasts and Apple Music, but the numbers are holding up pretty strong. But here's the reality, Brad. If you've got a radio station that has, just say hypothetically, 5,000 listeners, and 10 years ago it had 10,000 listeners, doesn't really matter because we're only paying for the audience that's actually listening based on the ratings, and they got a certain way of developing those ratings. So, if we're paying based on a cost per thousand CPM, I don't really care how many people are listening because I'm only paying for the ones that are actually there.
Right. No, I mean, that's probably more accurate what you were saying. It's on its way to potentially being dead. It's on its last leg. It's still alive and still kicking. It's holding in there. I mean, compared to like doing Facebook or Google or any of the other traditional marketing mediums.
My best guess, Brad, is 5 years from now. So you heard me. I said in the last 1 to 2 years, we've shifted a third of our TV budget into streaming. 2 years from now, that'll probably be 30% traditional, 70% streaming. 5 years from now, it'll probably just all be streaming.
Yeah. Well, this is totally off topic, but I'm just curious to get your thought on this. With like TikTok and that particular platform, it's wrecking a lot of things in like Facebook ads, because a lot of people are leaving Facebook and going to TikTok for entertainment. And then TikTok, a lot of people on TikTok are not there because they want to be pitched to. So I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on how platforms, specifically like TikTok, are changing the landscape of advertising.
I think it's overrated. And not that I think TikTok itself is overrated. And I've got clients that are on TikTok, no problem. But here's why it's overrated. My biggest client, single client, is probably $130 million in sales. And they've got a advertising budget of about 7 or 8% of that. So it's over $10 million. Here's why I'm bringing that up. Even that biggest client does not have enough budget to do everything that's available. Okay. So people are like, oh, let's go to TikTok because, Facebook demographics getting a little older. People want to be entertained. Well, guess what? 70% of adults are still going to Facebook every day. 70%. That's outrageous. It's the highest number of anything. And you don't really, whoever you are listening, you don't have enough budget to even spend all the money you could possibly spend on Facebook, let alone, TikTok or Instagram, which is obviously part of Facebook, Twitter, all of these things that are available. It really comes down to where's the best place to spend my money. And for contractors, Facebook is still a great place to be. Hear me loud and clear, Brad. I didn't say TikTok is dumb, don't do TikTok. But when I've got a client that comes to me and says, hey, I'd like to get into TikTok, I look at him and I go, you're spending $8,000 a month on Facebook. You could be spending $40,000 on Facebook. Why are we going to split this? Why don't we just go deeper into that one channel? So I'd rather be deep in one channel and get a lot of exposure, consistency and frequency than going off and doing multiple things. You could say it the opposite way too. If somebody was on TikTok and they said, well, I want to go to Facebook, you could have the exact same conversation.
Yeah. I mean, you can't master all of them, right? But part of that is like knowing where your customer is. I mean, obviously, if you're going after older,
guess what? Your customer is on all of them.
Yeah.
Your customer's on all of them. Your customer's on Facebook. They're on Instagram. They're on TikTok. They're on Twitter. They're on streaming. They're on the radio. They're on traditional television. Where do you want to put your money, man? It's all of them will work.
I mean, with your experience, is there certain platforms that work better for like certain people, like demographics, the customer demographics, or like even area, geographically? Does that matter at all?
Well, so the short answer is no. The nuanced answer is, because each of these platforms has massive audiences and they allow you to choose and segment based on geographic and demographic selections. Again, it goes back to that idea of how much budget do you have? There is more audience available on all of those platforms for your specific area demographic than you can spend. So if you want to go on TikTok, the traditional thinking is TikTok is for 12-year-old girls. And everybody knows that it's kind of aged up.
Right.
And okay, maybe it's for, people in their 20s, but there's plenty of people in their 40s, 50s, 60s watching TikTok.
Right.
And you can reach them by just selecting those particular people.
Yeah. So basically, pick whatever medium you want and then just pick your ad spend, and you're going to have success with it.
Yeah, this is one reason we're moving so heavily into streaming television, because streaming television has some really, really cool capabilities. For instance, traditionally, if you wanted to segment just a certain part of town for television, the only way to do that was to go on cable. But cable has a lot of problems. We won't go into the discussion about what the problems are with cable, but just suffice to say, there's some pretty big problems. With streaming, I can go in by zip code. Let's say that there's 100 zip codes in the area that you live in, and you only want to hit 3 of them. Boom, we can hit just those 3, and then it's going to feed commercials to people based on their IP address. So it doesn't actually matter what channel they're watching or what platform they're on. If we know their IP address and we know who they are based on data that we can buy from third-party sources, we can hit them. They're watching HGTV, we hit them. They changed the channel to Lifetime, we hit them. They changed the channel to ESPN, we hit them. They changed the channel to Roku, we hit them.
Interesting.
And so we can hit people across multiple channels and platforms through their IP address. It's really pretty cool.
Yeah, that's I've never done any radio or TV advertising or streaming. So the whole streaming and like the demographics of that, I don't know anything about. So I didn't even realize that you could target that specific with streaming.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. So you come to me, and let's say you're an HVAC company, and you're kind of higher end, and you want to go to people that have a little bit more money. So we go, great. What zip codes do you want to hit? And you say, okay, we want to hit these 5 zip codes, or these 8, or these 11, whatever number of zip codes you want to hit. Awesome. All right. We can also select homeowners only. So now we've eliminated all renters. They're not going to see your ads. They won't ever see them in the first place. We don't have to worry about them. They're gone. We can segment by income. Okay, how much income do you want to hit? 50,000 plus, 75,000 plus, 100,000 plus, 250 plus? You tell me. We can make it happen. Or we can hit a range. We can hit people from 100 to 150. No more, no less. We can hit just men. We can hit just women. We can hit people that are 45 to 50 years old only. We can hit what mix and match. You choose. We can hit them.
So it's like the old Facebook demographics that you could pick from. Facebook took down a lot on all this stuff. So,
yep, that is correct.
That's interesting. Yeah, I know that wasn't what we were planning on talking about, but that's something that I don't have any experience with. So,
well, let me give you a frame of reference on this. Why it's becoming more viable, because traditional TV I can usually buy somewhere in the neighborhood of $5 to $12 cost per thousand.
Okay.
In other words, to reach 1,000 people, 1,000 impressions, it's going to be $5 to $12, depending on the market, depending on the station. There's a lot of parameters, but let's just say $5 to $12, and let's say 10 is kind of an average. Streaming television used to be $40 to $50 cost per thousand. So you'd look at that and go, okay, do I really want to pay 4 or 5x, even though I'm going to get better targeting? And the answer historically has been probably not. In some cases, it makes sense. In a lot of cases, it doesn't. Now we can buy it for about $24, $25, $26 CPM. So still more expensive. But again, we cut out all the non-homeowners. We can target specific areas. So it's become a lot more viable that way. And that's why it's shifting and switching.
Yeah. That's something I'll have to look into that. I've never even considered it, honestly.
Let me tell you something else cool, Brad. Sorry, I know this wasn't necessarily our topic, but in the old days, meaning regular TV, first of all, you have to hit the whole city because that's where the TV signal goes. And if you're in a big city, if you're in Chicago and you're a $2 million contractor, you're screwed. You can't. TV is not a viable option. It'll cost you more than your annual revenue to play the game, or at least,
right,
a lot of money. With streaming, we can say, okay, great. How much money you got? Well, I've only got $3,000 a month to spend. Great. We're going to have to narrow the zip codes. We'll narrow the demographics, and we'll go pound the living snot out of those people and those zip codes, and you'll get customers.
Well, yeah, because you're spending less money, but you're getting super hyper focused demographics that your ideal customer. You can literally pick your ideal customer.
It used to not even be an option on regular TV and also regular radio. Now we can do that So I used to have this conversation a lot with smaller contractors who's like, hey, if you're in, Bloomington, Illinois or in Muncie, Indiana, we can put you on the radio and TV. If you're in Chicago or Dallas or
Right.
Denver or Washington, D.C., it's not even an option. And then also you would have companies, my biggest customer that I mentioned earlier, they're in Orange County. They do now they service Los Angeles, but they used to only be in Orange County. So we couldn't be on TV because they don't even service 2/3 of where the signal goes to. Now we can surgically go in there and just hit right where they want to be. It's really cool, big or small companies.
Yeah, never even thought about it from that angle. So that's something I need to check into for myself. Well, let's shift gears here for a second and talk about identity. Why is your identity, your business, your contracting business identity, why is that important?
Okay, so let's define identity. Let's first define what identity is not. This has been my experience. I've been in this industry, marketing industry, for 30 years. And the reason I got into it is because I noticed something, which is that almost all advertising and marketing uses what I call platitudes. Platitudes are words or phrases that are commonplace and dreary, and they're not very powerful. And people say them as if they were, some kind of original or significant thing, but they're just not. It's like, hey, we're a family-owned business. We've got the best service. We got the best prices. We've been in business since 1431 BC. It's like nobody cares. So I realized that if you talk more specifically about who you are, how you're different, why you're better, and what people can expect when they do business with you, and you tell it in a story format, and you build a case for why you're different, it really moves the needle in a very, very significant way. So that's where this concept of identity comes in. So identity would be the opposite of platitude. Platitude, words or phrases that are drearily commonplace, predictable, that lack of power to evoke interest through overuse, versus identity, communicating with power, precision, passion, who you are, how you're different, why you're better, what people can expect when they do business with you. So it really makes a big difference. If it's okay, I'd like to give you an example to make it really come alive. So I've got a client, they're in Kansas City, kitchen and bath remodeling company. They're on the radio, they're on TV. And so you say, well, what makes you guys different? And they go, oh, well, we use higher quality materials. It's a kind of a higher end remodeling company. Okay, great. So here's what you would expect normally. Let's just use a radio commercial because this is, I'm talking. So it's a good way to give an example. You might expect to hear this kind of radio ad. Hey, if you call Jericho Home Remodeling for kitchen or bath remodeling, we use the highest quality materials. We always make sure that it's done right. You're going to be happy with the job, and it's going to last a long time and look beautiful for years to come. And people hear that and they're like, yeah, that's what I would expect you to say. What are you going to say? It's going to be terrible. We're going to use crappy products. Of course not. So then let me contrast that with identity. Now, keep in mind, communicating with power, precision, and passion, who you are, how you're different, why you're better, what people can expect when they do business with you, and then overlay on that this element of storytelling. Okay, so here's an example. I'm just going to look on this screen here and read it so I don't butcher it, but you'll get it. One of the most common questions, this is radio ad, okay? One of the most common questions we get about kitchen and bathroom remodeling is, how much does it cost? But the question you should be asking is, how much does it weigh? How much does it weigh? Actually, you can tell a lot about the quality of a kitchen or bathroom remodel by how much the faucet weighs. At Jericho, we only use high quality Moen faucets. They weigh about 10 pounds each. They're solid metal, they look fantastic, and they last forever. Other remodelers save money by using off-brand plastic faucets that only weigh about 1.5 pounds. 10 pounds versus 1.5 pounds. Which would you rather have? Okay, so look what I just did there. I told a story about faucets. Now, most people don't know jack squat about remodeling. They know their old one looks bad. They want it to look cool. They've, looked up online cool stuff, but they don't know any of the details. So we choose something that is very easy for people to understand, the faucet, okay? Everybody knows what a faucet is. So we talk about the faucet. We talk about it weighing 10 pounds. We talk about other ones weighing 1.5 pounds. And after listening to that, people draw a conclusion, oh, they're higher quality. If they do that with the faucet, they probably do it with other things as well, things that I don't even know what they are, but now I have an example. And we've communicated with power, precision, and passion, who they are, how they're different, why they're better, what people can expect when they do business. So you take that concept, now overlay this on a radio campaign, and you create 2 or 3 different ads similar in nature based on different identity points. And it starts to be very, very powerful. Think about this. If you're trying to charge higher prices, so you want to do a little price conditioning, do you think people understand if you have a Moen faucet that's 10 pounds versus a cheap plastic 1.5 pound faucet, it probably costs a little bit more?
For sure.
But notice I never said it costs more, but it's just understood and it's implied. So I'm sort of letting people self-select. Do they want to call a company like that? Great, call us. If not, wonderful. Go to Craigslist. We don't care.
No, I love it. I love it. There's a psychological impact of that too about the weight. That's actually, it's actually a real marketing tool. The things that weigh more generally are better quality, right? So that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. We're taking things that people understand and we're using them as a proxy for the whole process, which they don't understand.
Yeah. There's an education piece in there, right? Because you're educating your potential clients and letting them know that, like, hey, you probably never even thought about this, but it's something that you should consider.
Let me give you another example. This is for a deck company, and the identity point is that they have good reviews. Okay, so again, think about what a deck company might say about good reviews. They might go on the radio and say, hey, call Hutcherson Construction. We've got great reviews. Go to Google and look. It's 5 stars. And people will go, okay, great. But we want to bring it alive by making the story a little bit more powerful. So we say this. Hey, do you ever notice how most people never leave online reviews unless they're really mad and they want the entire world to know just how bad their experience was? This is Nick from Hutcherson Construction. And believe it or not, we only have 5-star reviews. No 4 stars, no 3 or 2 or 1 stars, only 5 stars. I'm serious. Google Hutcherson Construction, click on reviews, and you'll see that our lowest review is 5 stars. Think about it. We build decks. Our industry is notorious for overpromising and under-delivering. And yet, in 7 years, we don't have a single solitary customer that gave us less than 5 stars. We treat our customers right. We do what we say. We finish on time. And we never charge more than we quoted. Oh, by the way, we have the most gorgeous, durable, amazing decks you've ever seen. Want to be our next 5-star customer?
Yeah,
give us a call.
Really good.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
So we're just saying things in a way that brings it alive and it etches into the customer's brain.
Yeah. So this is my take on this. Really what we're talking about here is the copy itself, right? We're talking about copywriting skills.
Oh, yeah.
So for those of you who don't know what that is, copy is just like the words that you say, basically. So yeah, I'm just curious, how much have you done a lot of training or experience in copywriting yourself? Is that where that comes from?
Short answer, yes. I've done a lot. And I'll tell you this, it's actually really hard to train copywriting because there's 2 parts of copywriting. So if you go out and hire a copywriter, and there's a lot of them out there, good ones, they can write stuff that's powerful and it's hard hitting. Here's what I found is the hard part to train. Knowing what to write about.
Yeah.
Knowing what to write about. So, you look at these 2 examples I just gave you, you have to know if you're going to write about high quality materials, coming up with that concept of, heavy faucet, that's not super intuitive and easy for most people.
No.
So it's
never
pretty hard. I've trained a lot of people.
Yeah, I personally would have never come up with that. And I'm a contractor. I know exactly what you're talking about. The second you said it, I'm like, yes, that's exactly true. And I would have never thought of coming up with that as an example.
Well, here's the reality, Brad. Think about it this way. Most people are contractors. You got to consider this. How did they become an owner of a contracting business? And the answer is that most of them came from one of 2 backgrounds. Background number 1 is they were an installer. So if it's HVAC, they were an installer. If it's remodeling, kitchen remodel, they were an installer. So they were the guy holding the hammer. Okay. They were hammer and grinding, to use a phrase I've heard recently.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds familiar.
Or the other place that they come from is they came from sales. So they worked for a company that was doing that stuff, but they were on the sales side of thing. Very few people come from a finance background or an operations background or a marketing background. So what happens is they start their company. Now they're a landscaper. They've got their business and they go, oh, geez, man, I need to get some leads in the door here. I need somebody to sell to. And they just look around at what everybody else is doing. They look at the company they used to work for, what they were doing, and they just sort of copy it. and they end up saying all of these platitudes that are not compelling whatsoever. They go in one ear and out the other, and everybody is the same.
Yeah. Hey, just a quick timeout from the show. If you're a frustrated contractor who's dealing with low profit margins, stuck working on the tools every day, or doing free estimates for people who are never going to hire you in the first place, I invite you to my private contractor community, the Profit Club, where contractors just like you are adding 2 to 3 times more profit each year without producing any more jobs, and finally getting completely off the tools to never do another free estimate again. So if you're ready to increase your profits, stop doing free estimates, and get off the tools, then all you have to do is click the link in the show notes to learn more about the Profit Club and see how it can easily 2 to 3 times the cash in your pocket, give you a proven sales process that will convert more jobs with ease and get you off the tools once and for all. And the best part is you can do all of this without having to produce more jobs than you currently are. Click the link to learn more. Now let's get back to the show.
So this is an opportunity to really, really, really set yourself apart, not just on advertising, but also probably even more importantly for a lot of smaller contractors on your website.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you see a lot of the on. I talk a lot about this. We all over ourselves. If you go to their website, and it's all about we are the best. We do this. We. It's all about my ego and how awesome I am. And so changing that, obviously, that's one small piece of that. But yeah. The whole copywriting thing is just interesting to me. I actually was in a mastermind all last year for the whole year. It was a copywriting marketing mastermind that I was in. So I learned a lot about copywriting, and I learned it's not something I want to get good at.
Well, that's why I brought up what background are people coming into this business from? The reality is, if you said to me, hey, Rich, I want to put you to work in a roofing company, get up there and, pull the roof off and put the new one on, or go install the new air conditioner, or, go plan a yard for a landscaping. I don't know how to do any of that stuff. I'm terrible at it. I hire people to do that stuff. There's a lot of different pieces of a company that you have to be good at, but you don't have to personally have the skill in all of those areas. So I'd recommend people lean into what you're good at and hire what you're not good at, and make sure you got good people around you.
I've talked about this all the time. I mean, all the time. And this, for some reason, I think it's just the natural disposition of contractors who are used to figuring things out, right? Like creating, building from nothing. They just have this inherent, disposition of like, I can figure out marketing. Like I can go out and watch some YouTube videos. I can do this. I can figure it out. And it's like, that's great. But why? Why would you ever want to do that? Hire professionals at whatever those things are and have those people do it for you.
Yeah, so part of what my company does, like I said, we build websites, we do search engine optimization, we do regular advertising, like we talked about, and digital advertising. Each of those categories of things that we do, it took us years to get to an elite level at providing those services. Years with hiring people that are experts in the field, but being able to put that together and actually produce good results consistently over time, over a large number of clients. I mean, and I'm bringing this up, I hope it's obvious. It's like, yeah, now you're one dude who's going to go watch a YouTube video and try to get good at this. Meanwhile, professional people whose whole livelihood depends on being good at this, it takes years to master it. It's not nothing. It's like, again, think about your highest caliber master craftsman in whatever it is you're doing, and how long did it take them to get that good? And then also think about it this way. Again, I don't know what most of your listeners are into, if it's landscape, if it's HVAC, what is it?
Mostly remodeling and general contracting.
Think about your very best guy, installer, versus your fourth best guy. Like, it's a tremendous difference. Like, man, if we could just clone Dave over here, who's our best guy, we'd be, hitting home runs all day long, every day, no exceptions. But just to get the guy that you've hired to do your job to the level of the very best guy, that's why he's the fourth best guy and not the best guy. It's just a law of life. So to expect that you're going to come into a domain that you're not familiar with in the first place, like marketing, and train yourself to be good. You can do it, but it's probably going to take energy away from other things that you should be doing
that's the
instead.
point I was trying to make, is like, even if you can figure it out, even if you're smart enough to figure it out, why would you spend even as little as 40 hours and potentially years trying to master this thing when you can be good at what you do and then hire other people to augment those things? So, I mean, you would know this, but I learned how to build a website with Microsoft Front Page. You ever use that?
You're dating yourself, man.
It was terrible. Like, it was absolutely terrible. And I probably spent, I don't know, 5 weekends trying to figure it all out. And it still looked like a 3-year-old designed a website, but still, like, I'm talking, throwing myself under the bus, because I've done all that stuff, trying to figure it out, trying to, instead of hiring experts, just trying to do it myself.
Yeah. We're on the same page there, man.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit more about identity. So what is there a process? If someone's listening to this and like, okay, I love what you're saying, that makes perfect sense, I want to do something similar in my business, is there a process to kind of go through in order to figure out, like, to create an identity for your business?
Yes, 100%. In fact, can I share my
Yeah.
screen?
Yeah. I mean, listeners won't be able to see it, but yeah, go ahead.
That's okay. I'll walk through it. But for those who are watching on YouTube or wherever video, I'll show this to you here.
Don't accidentally open your bank account tab now.
Yeah, well, I can't find it. Well, I'll just walk you through it. It's all good. I've got what I call the 5 pillars of identity. 5 pillars of identity. So just make a note, jot these down. So these are 5 broad categories of what I call identity points. So the first one is your products. Second one is workmanship. Third one is what I call bedside manner. It's going to be how you treat people. Fourth one is core values. And the fifth one is culture and reputation. And honestly, the fifth one is kind of a catch-all for things that didn't conveniently fit into the other 4. Okay. So within each of these 5 pillars of identity, there's going to be specific identity points. So for instance, let's use workmanship. So here's an identity point: no cutting corners, attention to detail, do it right the first time, slow down for quality, using quality materials, experience, worker oversight, no subcontractors, training, installation standards, warranties. Okay, so those are all sub points under the category of workmanship. So somebody might hear that and go, whoa, hang on a second. I think you just said no subcontractors. We use subcontractors. Doesn't matter. I'm not telling you that these are the things you need to do. I'm telling you that you need to look at this list and say, what are 2 or 3 of these that really map well to what your company is all about? And then you're going to lean into that. Think of it like building a case, like a court case. Okay, so what does the attorney do? The attorney does discovery and says, okay, I'm going to figure out what the points of this case are. Okay, we have the smoking gun, we've got the witnesses, we've got the alibi. They're going to pull all that together. Then they're going to figure out how to present that in the most effective way to the jury. So we got to do a little bit of discovery first. So we'll do a little test here for you, Brad. You ready? Okay, I'm going to read that list again under workmanship, and I'm going to ask you to determine if you can figure out where the "Our faucets weigh 10 pounds" commercials originated from. Ready? Workmanship: no cutting corners, attention to detail, done right the first time, slow down for quality, quality materials, experience, worker oversight, no subcontractors.
Quality materials.
Okay, so this is where we start. We look at the list and say, well, what is it that we do? And when I sit down with my client, I say, okay, what is it that makes you guys different and better? Oh, we're higher quality. Well, what do you mean higher quality? Well, we use higher quality materials. Well, give me some examples of that. So what we want to do is find these identity points, and then we want to find stories, examples, and comparisons so that we can bring them alive. Okay, so let me give you another list from bedside manner. Here's what bedside manner is. These are ones you could choose from: being punctual, your communication, easy and accurate quotes, no sales pressure, no pricing games, cleaning up after yourself, your workers' appearance, hiring standards, being kind and courteous, listening, not requiring any money down, on time and on budget. Okay, so those are all under a bedside manner. So I might look at that and go, oh, well, geez, no money down. Now, a lot of people listen to that and go, well, we require money down. Okay, great. That's not a good identity point for you.
Right.
But if This one Hutcherson's Construction that I gave you an example before, they actually don't require money down. So we created an ad for radio and also television called Deposit Hopping. And it goes something like this. Hey, did you know that most contractors are going to require you to put down anywhere from 30 to 50% as a deposit? We call it deposit hopping. Here's why. They're going to take that money and they're going to use it to buy materials for another customer's job because they're not financially secure and they don't have the money to buy it. So then they go and finish that job, collect the final payment, and they come over and buy the materials for your job. Or they have to go sell somebody else and take their deposit. It's called deposit hopping, and it puts you at risk. Everybody's heard the stories of contractors that take off with your deposit and they're never heard from again. Look, I'm not saying it happens all the time, but you need to protect yourself. At Hutcherson Construction, we never require any deposit ever. The first time you'll give us a nickel is when your materials are sitting on your property ready to be installed that day.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah.
So we're telling the story based on the identity
So
point.
basically what you're doing is you're selling against whatever that is. So for example, I teach collecting a deposit, right? So like whether that's true or not, whether or not the contractor is, contractors do that, which they do obviously rob Peter to pay Paul. The fact that you put that into someone's head, it doesn't matter if they talk to, 3 other contractors after they see your ad, they're going to be in their head. And if the other contractor is legitimate, is going to do just as good a job, it doesn't matter because you've put that thought in their head. And so you're selling against that idea. I like it.
Well, in the 5 pillars of identity, there's about 12 sub points that you can choose from. So across 5 pillars, that's around 60 sub points or identity points. You only need 2 or 3 to really lean into a marketing program. And if you're a little bit bigger company and you've got a little bit more budget, you can hit a little bit more identity points, maybe 5 or 6. You don't need 60. You can't have 60. It's too many. You need 1 or 2 that you really lean into. I'll give you an example. The first big HVAC company I worked with was Horizon Services out at East Coast, Philadelphia, Wilmington, Delaware. And one of their main identity points was that they would show up on time or your service is free. Now, that's a pretty strong point, right? If we're not on time, your service is free. Okay, well, how do you say that so that it makes sense? So we created a commercial with the owner that said something like this. It says, "Don't you hate to wait? I do. If I go into the doctor and he makes me sit in that room for 5 or 10 minutes, I get up and leave. If I show up at a restaurant and they say it's going to be a 10 or 15-minute wait, I'm out of there. I go to a different restaurant. I can't stand waiting." That's why when I started Horizon Services, I promised that my customers would never have to wait. We're going to give you a specific time when we're going to be there. And if we're even 1 minute late, 1 single minute, your entire service is going to be free. No hoops to jump through, no fine print, just free. You know why? Because I hate to wait, and so should you.
Yep.
That's powerful. Then I started working with Service Champions, West Coast, different company. I showed them some of the stuff I'd done from Horizon, and here's what they said to me. Whoa, we don't want to talk about that. We don't have a promise that if we're 1 minute late, it's free. We don't want to do that. Great. What are you guys all about? Well, a lot of our customers are older. Our whole thing is about our technicians are friendly. They're presentable. They do good deeds for free. What does that mean? Well, it means when they show up, they ask the customer, is there anything we can do for you around the house? We'll move boxes for you. We'll set up your internet for you. We'll do, whatever you need. Okay. So we coined a phrase, world's friendliest technicians, trademarked it, and we started leaning heavy into that. Print ads, billboards, trucks, radio, television, mailers, world's friendliest technicians. And 2 different companies, both wildly successful, wildly profitable companies, completely different identities.
Yeah, that's the power of a good story identity. I want to wrap it up and put it in a bow for those that are listening that may not understand this because it's something important I want to point out. It doesn't matter, like you were saying, you have all these different 60 plus, things that you can pick from. Let's go back to the deposit one. It doesn't matter if you collect deposits or don't collect deposits. It's whatever your company does well, then you make your message around that. And then you essentially make the opposite of that kind of the villain, right? So if you Don't collect deposits, you make deposits the villain. If you do collect deposits, you make not collecting deposits the villain. And it doesn't matter what company you're in. This isn't like there's only one way to do things in your business. It's whatever it is that's important to you. Now we create this message, this marketing message around it. So I just wanted to kind of put a bow around that for anybody listening. Like, don't get hung up on, oh, you mean now I have to give, not collect deposit and I have to market? No, that's not what we're saying at all.
Identity is like a fingerprint. Everybody's going to be a little bit different. So if you look at the home services industry, there's a few identity points that make sense in general. Showing up when you said you would, not charging more than you said you would quote, doing the job right the first time, having an accurate quote. These are things that are pretty universally desirable, but you just got to figure out where do you want to lean into. And like you said, I could care less if you do deposits. I'm an attorney is a good way to think about it. So my job is to look at the case that's presented and find out the best way to argue that case. And if if you require deposits and you use subcontractors, guess what? I'm not going to talk about that stuff. What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about hiring standards. So I might create a commercial that says something like this. Over here at Jericho Home Improvements, we don't hire 98 out of every 100 people that apply for the job. The reason is simple. First of all, 50% of them, they don't know how to do the job to our exacting standards in the first place. Then 60% can't pass a drug test, 30% can't pass a background test, and 40% are just completely unpresentable. They're going to scare the bejesus out of you and your family if they knocked on your door. We don't hire those people. We don't even let them through the first interview. If you want the highest caliber master craftsmen that can do the job right, that have 500 jobs worth of experience or more, that are presentable, friendly, on time, then that's Jericho. Or you could go hire one of our competitors. Guess who they're picking up?
Perfect.
Just depends on what you do. It doesn't matter what you do. It only matters if you don't do anything good. Then you deserve to suck and be out of business anyway.
The most common thing I hear is like, what sets you apart? Oh, our quality speaks for itself. And I just want to bang my head against the wall because it's like, that's what everybody says. And not only that, it's the bare minimum to show up. Like, that's to be in business. Your quality should be good. So you can't hang your hat on that. Do you have this somewhere, Rich? Like, is it in your book? Do you have webs like this, the identity thing? Do you have that available? Or?
This is all covered in detail in my book. The book is called Unlocking Unlimited Lead Flow. It's on Amazon. It's also covered multiple times on my podcast. My podcast is called the Level 10 Contractor Daily Podcast. It's on all the usual platforms. You're obviously listening to a podcast, so just look it up. And you can just search for identity topics. It's covered several times.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm going to pick up your book and jump into that. I mean, I love I would spend most of my time in the bedside manner. Like, that's where I would spend most of my energy.
Yeah, it just depends on what your company's all about. Worker appearance, hiring standards, being kind and courteous.
All the above.
Yeah, when I told you earlier, we talked about world's friendliest technicians. We wrote a bunch of ads that were based on that. One of them said something to this effect. It's similar to the one that I just gave you, but it has a different flavor. Notice the different flavor here. At Service Champions, we have the world's friendliest technicians. When we go to hire, the very first thing we look for is how friendly they are. In fact, when they come into the interview, they don't realize that they're being judged on their friendliness. If they are not friendly, we immediately dismiss them from the interview. We don't even care how good they are, because if the guy's good at his job, but he's not going to treat our customers right, we don't want him. It's not going to happen. We're not going to try to train friendliness into people. We start with friendly, then we go to qualifications. Obviously, we're only going to send qualified people, but you can make darn sure they're going to be friendly. Because why? We have the world's friendliest technicians.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. You definitely have copywriting experience. I will say that. You are a very good copywriter.
That's my forte. That's my core competence.
That's a skill. Like, I want you listening to this. You guys, if you're hearing this, even if you did it yourself, you would not have wrote a ad as eloquently as Rich has just done. And that's a skill that's been developed and learned. That's not just something you're born with. So I recognize that in you, Rich. So congratulations.
Like I said earlier, though, Brad, it's like everybody's
Yeah.
good at something and they're not good at way more things than they're good at. So just figure out, hopefully if you're in your business, you're good at selling or you're good at, delivering the thing that you're selling. Lean into that, hire people around you, whether it's marketing or sales or finance. I mean, how many contractors are naturally great at finance? The answer, almost none.
0.
It's a super important part of your business. It's not my forte. I can hold my own, but it's not my forte.
Right. No, that's one of the things I help a lot of contractors with is the finance side of it. They do not understand that. So, well, this has been fantastic, Rich. I really appreciate you being on the show. I know we're going to put the links in the show notes, but we got the Level 10 Contractor website, right? And it's literally Level 10, the number 10, contractor.com. We got your book, Unlocking Unlimited Lead Flow. I'm assuming that's on Amazon as well. If somebody wanted to pick it up there.
Yep.
And then
it's on Amazon.
I'm sorry.
Yep. Amazon's actually the only place you can buy it. So go to Barnes & Noble, you won't find it. Go to Amazon and you will find it.
And then, so if somebody wants to learn more about your services, your agency, what's the best way? Or you have social media or anything like that? How can they get a hold of you?
I would strongly recommend that you start with the podcast, Level 10 Contractor Daily Podcast. The book is also a good place to start. If you have any specific questions for me, I'd be happy to talk to you. Just reach out to me. My email is Rich, RICH, at level10contractor.com.
Awesome. Well, Rich, one more question I always like to ask everybody, and of course we're gonna put your book in there, but it doesn't count here. What's a book that you would recommend? One that you're currently reading, or one that you would recommend?
The book that I would read, Man, I read books on a wide variety of topics. I'm going to keep it more in the wheelhouse of business. Okay.
Let's do that.
Probably a little bit advanced. I don't say that to be condescending at all, but some really small business owners may not take quite as much away, but there's going to come a point where the book Good to Great is going to be an invaluable resource to you. Good to Great. Talk about the flywheel effect. Talk about the metrics that you're looking at and keeping track of in your business. That's one of those books. I mostly listen to books rather than read them. I go back and I listen to that book about every 3 years. And every time I listen to it, I'm making notes because I've grown and gotten better and different. And I'm taking new and different things out of that book. It's a great one.
Yeah, I've actually read that one. It is a really good book. It's interesting. I always ask this question with everybody because I'm looking for books to read, but there's always one book that just really resonates with someone, and they're not all the same, and they just go back and listen to it. So that's just something that's interesting to me. But Good to Great, that is a good one, definitely. Well, Rich, thanks again for being on the show. I really appreciate your time today.
Yeah, my pleasure. Anytime.
Awesome. Well, guys, that's the end of the episode. You know where to find me on the social media platform. Go to the show notes. Just look for the Hammer and Grind podcast. You can find me there. And if you haven't grabbed my book yet, make sure you pick that up. And until next time, remember, profit is not a dirty word.